If you have ever developed a Chrome extension, you may have noticed that service workers do not stay alive permanently. Instead, they shut down after 30 seconds of inactivity. If we look here, this is my Chrome extension called WittScepter, and if we look at the views right here, it says service worker and in parentheses inactive. And this means that my service worker hasn't received any kind of events that will wake it up within the past 30 seconds. When a service worker isn't inactive, like my Chrome extension here, we will not have inactive in parentheses next to the word service worker. And this inactivity of service workers can introduce bugs into your extension, because when developing an extension, you're consistently updating the service worker code, refreshing the extension, all things that extend the life of the service worker. This means that your extension development environment isn't identical to what it would be in production. So to make sure your extension is working as expected in production, you should experiment with stopping and starting the service worker. And this can be done at this URL right here, which is called serviceworker-internals. Let me zoom in. And I will post the URL to this in the description, but essentially what it allows us to do is start and stop our service workers. So we can see right here for extension with this ID, we can stop it, we can start it. So right now it's stopped, I can click start, and we can do all this stuff, which will of course impact the behavior of our extension. So for example, in my Chrome extension WittScepter right here, something I can do is a tab request capture feature where I can click on one of these URLs, which is an open tab, and it will open all the requests that have been sent on this page. So for example, I refresh this, it'll capture all the requests right here with their status code. If I click in here, then I can resend and see what the response was, check the response body. But all of this is very heavily dependent on service workers, specifically listening out for events. And when I'm developing this application, I'm constantly updating the code and I have live reloads that will wake up the service worker. But if I wanted to see what would happen, for example, if I went over here, this is my extension right here, and the service worker is currently alive. If I clicked stop, now the service worker isn't listening out or is idle. And if I go back in here, I would want to resend this and check that everything's working. And of course it is because I've inspected for this, but you might not be so lucky. So for example, I noticed that with my other Chrome extension, which is called console log right here, which essentially creates pop-ups on your web page. So these are all console log statements. Let me increase the time from 1 second to about 16. So these are all console log statements that appear in the browser. And this also relies on event listeners. And what I did is I added the listeners in the onInstalled event. And because I kept refreshing my service worker, it would rerun this onInstalled event all the time from scratch. And so I thought everything was working fine, when what was really going on is it was an artificial environment, because after the onInstalled event runs and the event handlers are removed, they wouldn't be added again. And I figured this bug out by going in here onto this page and starting and stopping my service worker. So my advice would be to stop and start your service worker again and check everything is working accordingly. That's all I wanted to show you in this video. If you like content like this, check out my software in the description. I've got 2 Chrome extensions, one called WittScepter and one called Console Log that if you're a developer, which I'm sure you are if you're watching this, you'll find very helpful. Also check out my courses where I'll teach you how to build cool Chrome extensions, tips like this. Besides that, thank you for subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.